Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Good to be back. So tell you what, let's switch gears. Let's talk a little bit of Tuesday night college hoops. Now, if you listen to Sunday night's Aaron Torres pod, Monday's Aaron Torres pod, you know, we talked a lot about the weekend college hoops. Obviously, if you listen on the podcast feed specifically, you got some NFL content because Torres had takes on Bills Chiefs. Well, I bring it up because it's not too early to start looking ahead to Tuesday. And I'll tell you what, there are no easy nights in the SEC, and it will not get easier Tuesday night for either team in a top 15 matchup in Knoxville, Tennessee. Tennessee coming off a loss to Auburn. Kentucky coming off back-to-back losses 2 Saturdays ago to Alabama, last Saturday to Vanderbilt at home. These two teams will get together in Knoxville on Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. By the way, schedules don't get easier after this. Tennessee hosting Florida and Missouri coming up, both top 25 teams. Kentucky with that matchup against Arkansas on Saturday that they simply cannot lose to John Calipari and the Razorbacks. Bring it up because let's go ahead and preview this game. Fascinating matchup. Two teams that desperately need a win. And obviously only one of them is going to be able to come out successfully. We could go either side. Let me start with, I'll go ahead and start with the Tennessee Volunteers. We talk a lot of Kentucky on the Aaron Torres, but we talk a lot of Tennessee too. We talked about them this weekend. Same time with Tennessee. Listen, I think that there's some good news, there's some bad news, and I do think now 7 games going on 8 in SEC play. Some trends about this team are starting to emerge, some positive, some negative. The positive, this Rick Barnes defense is a typical Rick Barnes defense. It is elite. They get after it. They make things impossible for the opponent, and it's not just the bad teams. Look at what they did to Auburn. Remember, Auburn came into this weekend as not only the best offense in college basketball, but how about this? You ask the analytics nerds like Ken Palm, I'm not a huge analytics guy, but Ken Palm says that this Auburn offense is trending to be one of the best in the history of college basketball. Well, fast forward, guess what? Tennessee holds them to 53 points on Saturday. They hold them obviously to 31% shooting from the field, 20% from behind the three-point arc. I know there's frustration with Tennessee fans about how the game ended, foul calls, Janai Broom, all that stuff. But it doesn't change the fact that that defense is not only was elite on Saturday night against Auburn, but is elite all season long. How about this? Number 2 nationally in field goal percentage defense. Not bad. Number 1 nationally in 3-point defense, definitely not bad. Number 3 nationally in points per game allowed. It's crazy. We obviously, if you're listening on podcasts, you just heard the Bruce Pearl interview, but I did talk to Bruce Pearl on Monday, and he just raved about how good that Tennessee team is, how tough that Tennessee team is, and the fits that they gave them. So the good news is the defense is again elite. Unfortunately, the bad news is the offense certainly looked very sharp early in the season, but I think as you get in deeper into SEC play, it's maybe more limited than we thought. And listen, it was going to be hard, right? I mean, think about it. Dalton Connect, I almost said Dalton Kincaid, who obviously had a busy day on Sunday. But Dalton Connect, to expect to replace him, and I'm not saying any Tennessee fan expected it, but to expect to just replace that guy, a first-team All-American, should have been a lottery pick. He ends up going, top 20. That was not going to be easy. And listen, Chaz Lanier, the guy who was brought in from North Florida, he was great early, but he has taken a step back since league play started. Kind of interesting because I mentioned this early in the season. I remember previewing the Tennessee-Arkansas SEC opener for both teams, and I said, I didn't think Chaz Lanier was going to be this good. Through the first, about 14 games of the season, when Tennessee was 14-0, averaging 20 points per game. The last 6, Tennessee is just 3-3 overall. Well, guess what? That's dropped down to 12.5 points per game. I'm not saying he's the only reason that they're struggling, but what I am saying is, 8 points per game drop. This was from the leading scorer. 2 of the 3 losses are by 8 points or less. I'm not putting it all on him, but he was supposed to be the guy that could consistently get you production time and time again 4 of the last 6 games, 10 points or fewer. Also worth noting, it puts more pressure on everybody else. Sakai Ziegler, who I love, he's not built. His best role is not trying to score 20 points a game. It's getting other people's involved. It's getting other people involved, It's getting other people to score 20 points per game. So I just bring it up because it's a little bit of a tough spot for Sakai Ziegler, tough spot for all the other guys on this roster. Offense has regressed. Defense is great. For Kentucky, we talked about it again on Sunday's Aaron Torres pod. I don't think we need to just go crazy relitigating all of that. But Kentucky's lost 2 in a row. The big issue with them to me is not anything, scheme-wise or whatever. It's just the fact that they're really, really, really banged up. I don't think Mark Pope forgot how to coach from 2 weeks ago versus now. But you look at this team, they're just in bad shape physically. Lamont Butler, love Lamont. We've talked about Lamont a lot on this show. Something's not right. If you go back to, I said it on the show the other day, you go back to the Texas A&M game. He took 2 or 3 big hits, 2 or 3 big falls. I'm not saying Texas A&M did anything dirty, but just a physical game, hurt his elbow, hurt his shoulder, hurt his this, hurt his that. And I thought you could see it a little bit in the game on Saturday against Vanderbilt. Finished that game with 6 points, 6 turnovers. By the way, he had only had more than 1 turnover in the previous 5 SEC games one time. So in other words, he's been really good with the ball. Had 6 turnovers on Saturday against Vanderbilt. Did not look like himself. Obviously, his backup Kirk Kriisa is out, and that's something we've talked about. Is that, listen, I wasn't always the biggest Kirk Kriisa fan, but when Lamont, especially early when he was playing well, when he went out of the game, what ends up, you can't even run offense because you don't have a backup point guard. Lamont struggled from there, but it doesn't change the fact that it's just, your starting point guard's hurt, your backup point guard's out. And then the big one on Saturday was obviously Andrew Carr, the starting forward who was out for that game. I said it at the time, I don't think Mark Pope would ever admit it, but I do wonder if the back was maybe bothering Andrew Carr and Mark Pope's hope, say that 10 times fast. You can say hope and Pope, but Mark Pope's hope was, hey, maybe we can survive the Vandy game without him. We'll need him back for Tennessee. We don't know if Andrew Carr is going to play, but listen, double-figure score, a guy that has been consistently one of the better players, and you don't have him, and I just think it puts so much burden on everybody else. And by the way, I'd add kind of that 3-4 spot where he plays, the 4 spot specifically, just not an area of depth, and we saw it on Saturday when they played Vanderbilt. You had to go to the backup, Trent Noah, true freshman. He's a good player. He's going to get there, but he certainly isn't there yet. So for Kentucky, I think the big thing right now is to just try to find a way to win this game because right now you're banged up, and that's the biggest thing is just getting healthy. So that is kind of where both teams are. Now let's just go ahead and get to a pick. And I'll be honest, I do like Tennessee to win this game. The truth of the matter is I just think it is a tough spot for Kentucky. First of all, second straight road game. Obviously, it's going to be emotional Saturday. I think that's probably a little bit overrated. Bottom line is none of the players on this roster played for John Calipari. None of the coaches coached for John Calipari. I think it'll be emotional for the fans. I think it'll be emotional for John Calipari, and I think it'll be emotional for the 3 Arkansas players, Adu Thero, DJ Wagner, and Big Z, who are coming back. I don't think like Kentucky's going to be looking ahead to Arkansas or anything like that. I just think this is a tough spot for Kentucky coming into this game. They're banged up. As I record, we don't know if Andrew Carr is going to play. We'll see. Maybe he does. But as of right now, we do not know. But beyond that, it's just a tough matchup on the road against a team that's sort of kind of built to beat you, right? I mean, what does Kentucky want to do more than anybody? They want to shoot a bunch of 3-pointers. Tennessee, as I said, quite literally the number 1 3-point defense in America. That's a tough spot. And I think it's a tough spot, especially because of a trend that we've seen with Kentucky this year, which is that they have struggled at times to score on the road. Now, they were great at Mississippi State a few weeks ago. But outside of that, 69 points at Vandy the other night. Outside of the Mississippi State game, not only 69 points at Vandy, but on top of that, you had 66 against Clemson. And then in your other SEC road game, 69 against Georgia. So of your 4 true road games, you failed to break 70. And this is from a team that's hit 100 multiple times this season. So Tennessee's a great team. I think this is ugly. I think it's a rock fight. I think it's tough to see the scenario where it's just a tough spot for Kentucky. I'll go ahead and say, I just said 70-66 was the score when they played at Clemson. That feels like that's going to be about this game. By the way, we don't have a betting line yet. I think the under is very much in play here because Kentucky games are always going to skew high in the point total. Go ahead and give me Tennessee to win. They get back on track heading into the Florida game this weekend. And if Kentucky loses, I don't know what else there is to say other than that it is going to be a long few days before the Arkansas Razorbacks come to town. By the way, we're going to have so much coverage of that game. We're going to have guests, we're going to have this, we're going to have that. So it's going to be a busy week.